We'll see.
Grossly, but yes, we've got enough flights and we've got enough money and food.
UNICEF still wants 400 tonnes of high-energy food for children and more money for aid flights. The Disasters Emergency Committee says that it is reviewing hour by hour its position on launching a major appeal. Emily Buchanan, BBC News.
The senior police officer who was initially in charge of the Stephen Lawrence murder investigation has admitted that he should have arrested 5 suspects earlier than he did. Detective Superintendent Ian Crampton was giving evidence at the inquiry into the death of the teenager who was killed in southeast London 5 years ago.
Michael Mansfield, the Lawrence family lawyer, arrived today to accuse one of the most senior ranking officers of conducting an inquiry characterised by delay and fiasco. Mr Mansfield asked former Detective Superintendent Ian Crampton repeatedly why he'd not arrested the 5 suspects in the 3 days after the murder, when they'd been named by 9 different sources and linked to other violent crimes. Why, asked Mr Mansfield, was there a delay in organising surveillance on their homes and in setting up ID parades? Mr Crampton said it was difficult to organise ID parades on a weekend and that despite the information, he didn't have enough evidence to arrest. Mr Crampton said he didn't realise that one of the suspects, David Norris, was the son of a well-known South London criminal wanted by police at the time, even though the Norris family had been investigated for him on another inquiry. It never arose in his mind, he said, that the two might be linked. Ian Crampton ended his evidence saying he'd faced a senior investigating officer's nightmare over whether or not to arrest, but that he'd made the right decision. His evidence continues tomorrow. Rita Chakrabarti, BBC News, South London.
Scotland's team coach Craig Brown has announced his 22-man squad to tour America this month, where they will play the USA and Colombia. There is no place for the Rangers star Ali McCoist, despite showing good recent form with 6 goals in 7 matches during March and April. But Celtic's Darren Jackson and Tosh McKinley are both included. Gianfranco Zola is the toast of Stockholm and West London tonight after he helped his Chelsea side win the European Cup Winners' Cup. His goal halfway through the second half was enough to beat VfB Stuttgart of Germany and help Chelsea to their first European trophy in 27 years.
The Chelsea coach Gianluca Vialli said he wanted the final to be a celebration of another successful season, and 13,000 Chelsea fans were in Stockholm to join the party. The atmosphere in the Swedish capital was friendly during the day. In terms of support, Chelsea easily outnumbered the opposition. Only 4,000 Stuttgart fans bothered to take up their ticket allocation. For both sets of supporters, the final was the latest instalment in the long history of Anglo-German football rivalry.
Tonight was the last chance for an English club to land a European trophy. Chelsea last did it way back in 1971 when they beat Real Madrid in the Cup Winners' Cup.
Stuttgart aren't in that illustrious company, but they certainly had the better of the first half. The Chelsea defence allowed them far too much space, a lapse for which Bobic failed to punish them. Their Bulgarian star, Sergei Balakov, at least hit the target, but Ed de Hoy in the Chelsea goal kept them on level terms. Chelsea's best chance fell to Dennis Wise. The volley was sweetly struck, but just the wrong side of the Stuttgart post. It was a far more convincing Chelsea in the second half. Granville, playing in Lassau's place, leading the counter-attack. But the masterstroke was the appearance of Gianfranco Zola, substituting for Flo 20 minutes from the end. There had been doubts about his fitness virtually until the kick-off, but with his first touch, he buried the ball in the back of the Stuttgart net for Chelsea's winning goal.
Oh, goodness me, you couldn't write that.
It wasn't a vintage final, but the through ball from Wise and the finish from Zola meant it was at least settled by a classic strike. Delight on the bench turned to anxiety when Petrescu was sent off, but Chelsea survived the last 5 minutes with 10 men to claim the prize they last won 27 years ago. They now have their 3rd trophy in 12 months, and Vialli and company and a few thousand others will enjoy their party in Stockholm tonight. Neil Bennett, BBC News, at the Rosunda Stadium in Stockholm.
Congratulations to Chelsea. Finally, the main news tonight. India has been condemned around the world for carrying out another 2 underground nuclear tests. Newsnight will be on BBC Two in just a few minutes now, but from the BBC Newsroom, a very good night to you.
Good evening. A 45-year-old man, a cousin of the killer Frederick West, is on trial at Birmingham Crown Court accused of raping 4 girls. William Hill has pleaded not guilty to 4 charges of rape and 4 charges of indecent assault.
William Hill, who's also known as John Hill, tried to hide his face from the television crews as he left the court with his wife on the first day of the trial. According to one witness at the trial, Hill was an overbearing and violent bully who made her promise not to tell anybody about the alleged attack on her. A cousin of the mass murderer Fred West, Hill was in his 20s at the time of the alleged incidents, which the prosecution claims took place at Old Pike Cottages, the home he shared with his aunt at Muchmarcle in Herefordshire. Hill's alleged to have attacked the girls on separate occasions while they stayed at the house during different periods between 1976 and 1983. The prosecution claims Hill used to drive the girls around the countryside near his home in his 3-wheeler. The defence claimed the first witness was mistaken about what took place, while the second witness was said to have made up the story of being raped at Hill's former home. Hill, who now lives in Ledbury, pleads not guilty to 4 charges of rape and 4 charges of indecent assault. The trial is continuing. Mike Hilbane, Midlands Today, Birmingham Crown Court.
A Midlands man who suffered a collapsed lung says his doctors have told him it may have been because he went on a £12 million roller coaster ride at Alton Towers. The theme park has dismissed the claims.
Neil Satchwell spent 6 days in hospital with a collapsed lung and has been told he'll now probably always suffer from breathlessness. He says the doctors who treated him thought his ride on Oblivion a week earlier may have triggered his condition.
I had violent chest pains and just the pain shooting up my arm and across my neck, as if I was having a heart attack. That's what it felt like. I didn't even think it would be the ride, but then they said it could have been a possibility because it's the drop in altitude apparently.
Alton Towers is unconvinced.
We have a very strict health and safety policy at Alton Towers, and we would never run any ride at all if we felt there was any issue about illness or injury that could result from it.
There is a safety notice at the entrance to the ride. It warns the public that the ride's not suitable for pregnant women and those with heart, neck and back problems. But Alton Towers also says that it's partly up to the public to make sure that they know they're well when they go on the ride. Alton Towers says after 300,000 rides and no complaints, Oblivion is safe. Liz Munro, Midlands Today, Staffordshire.
Police in Warwickshire have been given another 24 hours to question a driver in connection with the deaths of 2 men in Leamington Spa. They died when they were hit by a pickup truck in the town centre on Monday evening. Detectives say they're treating their deaths as murder. Aston Villa will play in next season's UEFA Cup after Chelsea beat Stuttgart 1-0 in the Cup Winners' Cup. And Northampton Town are through to the second division playoff final after a 3-0 victory over Bristol Rovers. That's 4-3 on aggregate. That's the news from the Midlands Today newsroom for tonight. From all of us here, a very good evening to you.
Good evening to you. It was a scorcher today, at least it was in some parts of the country, everywhere from central Scotland to the south coast. Temperatures into the 80s. But now we're having to pay for it because just recently we've had some thunderstorms rumbling across the channel, developing in Wales. We've even seen some very large hailstones and some pretty nasty driving conditions. So that's the message really for the next few hours, especially in Wales, but also in parts of southern England, more particularly from West Sussex westwards. Do take care on the roads, especially in and around those really vicious storms. And we're going to find some storms around, not only in southern England, but in Wales. And later on in the night, they're going to trundle across into parts of the Isle of Man, Northern Ireland, and into western Scotland. And also later on in the night, it's going to turn grey and misty, quite murky, across much of the rest of the country, as it has done the last few nights. But a fairly warm night for most areas, a little bit chillier along that east coast. Tomorrow we may still have some of those residual thundery showers lurking around in southern areas, but more particularly I think by that time across into Ireland, Northern Ireland and western Scotland. Everywhere else starting off quite grey and overcast, but I think more readily than of late the sun will break through, and even eventually on the east coast we're going to find some sunny spells, but also at the same time in the more western areas those thundery showers getting their act together again. So we're not only going to find them in western Scotland and Northern Ireland, but more cropping up later on in Wales and the southwest, perhaps down into the Channel Islands as well. A little bit more of an easterly breeze picking up, so that will peg the temperatures down along the east coast there, but in the more sheltered central and western areas, another very warm day indeed, up to 25 or 26 degrees. Now we also have some poor air quality, high air pollution across much of England and Wales, but that's going to change in the next few days because these fronts are going to come across from the east introducing cleaner and fresher air, but with high pressure still with us, at least it should stay fine and dry, because that cleaner, fresher air will eventually, I think, come Friday into the first part of Saturday, push the last of those thundery showers out of the way, and then most parts of the country for the weekend dry with a good deal of sunshine, albeit a cool breeze. A very good night.
When your GP's day is over,
A lot of sick people out there. That's just the doctors.
who do you turn to for help?
Hello, out of hours.
Everything's going to be fine.
I'm the only driver to make it past the 5-year mark.
Congratulations.
With John McArdle
I'd invite you in for coffee, but my sister's staying.
You leave us all alone!
and Lindsay Coulson.
Do you always get so involved?
You just do with kids.
Out of Hours starts next Wednesday at 9:30 on BBC One.
Reflecting on a life that could have come from one of his own novels, Geoffrey Archer and friends speak to Omnibus in half an hour. That's 5 minutes later than scheduled because of the exciting European Cup Winners' Cup final earlier this evening. First on BBC One, it's criminal what some people will do for a laugh.
Previously on the Jasper Carrott Trial.
I'm an innocent man!
How do you plead? Not guilty.
You would cut off a dog's nose simply to get a laugh? Is that what you're saying?
I'd bite its bollocks off if it'd get a laugh. You've never had a mole, have you? Hey? Oh, you've got one now.
Proceedings in day 2 of the Jasper Carrott trial have just got underway here at court number 4.